In the soft glow of an ordinary American morning, a single accusation tears through a quiet grocery store like a thunderclap. A trembling little girl, clutching nothing but fear, is dragged into the center of a storm she never created. Customers watch, E2 frozen, complicit, silent, as her voice is swallowed by authority, and just as she's cast out into the blinding daylight, the doors swing back, and a stranger steps forward, a man whose eyes say he saw everything. The grocery store didn't look like a place where a child's world could collapse. Sunlight streamed through long, spotless windows, warming the displays of fruit and polished tiles. Families moved slowly through the aisles, pushing carts filled with weekend routines. Everything felt normal, predictable, until the moment the cashier's sharp voice sliced through the calm. "Hey, little girl, stop right there." Heads turned. A small figure froze beside the self-checkout area, her thin shoulders tensing, as though the sound itself had struck her. She wore a faded pink dress, the hem slightly torn, and dust clung to the knees, as if she'd been sitting somewhere rough before coming inside. Her brown hair was tangled at the edges, and her shoes looked 2 sizes too big. But her eyes, large, soft, frightened, darted around as if searching for a place to hide. The cashier marched over, waving a crumpled dollar bill between 2 fingers, like evidence in a crime drama. "You thought you could get away with this?" she demanded. The girl blinked. I didn't take anything." Her voice was barely louder than the hum of refrigerators. But the manager, a broad man with a red vest and tired eyes, overheard the commotion. He approached with an expression that had long forgotten what patience felt like. "What's Sep's going on?" he barked. The cashier thrust the dollar toward him. She grabbed it from the tip jar. I saw her looking at it earlier. Gasps rippled through the line behind them. Someone muttered, "Kids these days," while another whispered, "Where's Sep's her parent?" The little girl took a small step back. "I didn't steal it," she repeated, her voice cracking. I was waiting." "For what?" the manager demanded. She hesitated, too long for his liking. "For what, young lady?" His voice rose, echoing through the store. Her lips trembled. "For someone who said they set meet me." The explanation dissolved under the weight of his glare. "Save it," he snapped. "We have cameras. We saw what we saw." But that was a lie. There were cameras, but he hadn't bothered to check. He saw only a desperate-looking child, and jumped to the easiest conclusion. He grabbed her wrist. Not hard, but firm enough that she winced. "We don't tolerate theft. Not a dollar. Not a dime." The girl instinctively clutched a small cloth pouch tied to her waist, as though protecting something fragile inside. The manager noticed the motion and scoffed. "Yeah, real innocent," he muttered. Around them, customers stood frozen, torn between discomfort and the safety of silence. A few looked away. A few stared too long. No one moved. Except one man. He stood near the bakery aisle, tall, sharply dressed, with a presence that drew attention without effort. His hair was neatly combed, and the cut of his suit suggested wealth. Old wealth, quiet wealth, not the kind that needed to announce itself. He watched the scene unfold, his expression unreadable, but his eyes, dark, piercing, missed nothing. The manager hauled the girl toward the exit. "You're not welcome here," he said coldly. "Come back again, and we start calling the police." "But I didn't set," she started. "I said enough." The automatic doors slid open, and a burst of bright daylight poured inside. The girl stumbled as she was shoved out onto the concrete, her shoes scraping as she caught her balance with both hands. The sun illuminated the faint bruises on her arm, the marks on her shoes, the hopelessness on her face. The doors hissed shut behind her. Inside, the world snapped back into motion. Carts rolled again. Conversations resumed. Scanners beeped rhythmically. All except for the man near the bakery aisle. He hadn't moved. His jaw flexed once, a sign of restrained anger, before he finally broke his stillness and walked toward the cashier with measured, purposeful strides. "Excuse me," he said, voice calm but edged with steel. The cashier stiffened. "Sir, we handled it. Just a petty theft situation." "Handled it," he repeated quietly, almost tasting the word, "by accusing a child without proof." The manager overheard and hurried over, forcing a polite smile. "Sir, I assure you everything is under control." The man's sights traveled from the discarded dollar bill to the direction of the exit, then back to the manager. "Did you check the cameras?" The manager hesitated, a second too long. "Well, we didn't need to. You didn't check," the man interrupted, his tone leveling into something dangerous. "And you grabbed her, without evidence, without decency." Several customers shifted uncomfortably, pretending not to listen while doing exactly that. "What sets it to you?" the manager snapped, some of his earlier confidence returning. "Look, she sets probably one of those kids hanging around for trouble. We did the right thing." The man held his gaze, unblinking. "The right second thing," he murmured. "Rarely looks like humiliating a child in front of strangers." A heavy silence settled. He didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He simply spoke, and the weight of his words pressed into the air like thunder. Finally, he turned away from the manager, dismissing him without another glance. He walked through the automatic doors, stepping into the sunlight. The girl sat on the edge of the curb, knees pulled to her chest, her small hands covering her face. Her thin shoulders shook with each quiet sob, the kind that came from someone who had run out of places to hide. The man approached slowly, not wanting to frighten her. He crouched a few feet away, letting his shadow fall gently beside her, not over her. "Hey," he said softly. "You're not in trouble." She didn't to look up. "I saw what happened," he continued, "and I know you didn't take that dollar." Her fingers tightened around her knees. For a moment he thought she might speak, but instead she wiped her eyes with the back of her hand and glanced toward the street, as though expecting someone who still hadn't arrived. "Who were you waiting for inside?" he asked. This time, she lifted her head slightly. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "My brother." The words hung in the warm air, fragile and trembling, and before he could ask more, a sudden shadow stretched across both of them. Someone else had arrived. Someone who paused just out of reach, breathing hard, as though they had run here. And the girl's eyes widened, not in relief, but in fear. "He suts here," she whispered, and the man realized the story was far darker and far from over. The man froze when he saw the figure standing near the curb. The little girl's whisper, "He's here," carried a tremor too deep for a child her age. It wasn't relief, it was dread, the kind of dread that wrapped around the bones and tightened with every shallow breath. A teenage boy, no older than 15, stood a few feet away. His clothes hung loosely over his thin frame, and sweat beaded at his temples as if he'd run the length of the town just to reach her. His chest rose and fell in ragged pulls, but his eyes, dark, alert, and fiercely protective, never left the girl. "Layla," he breathed, stepping closer. "I'm so sorry. I got here as fast as I could." The girl, Lila, lifted her head, wiping her cheeks with trembling fingers. "They thought I stole something," she whispered, voice carrying the humiliation she still couldn't swallow. The boy's jaw tightened. "Who?" he asked, scanning the store entrance like it was enemy territory. The man stood slowly, watching the interaction with quiet calculation. He had expected a careless parent, maybe a guardian too overwhelmed to see the girl's distress. But this wasn't that. This was something rodder, something desperate. The boy noticed him then, really noticed him, and instinctively stepped in front of Lila, shielding her with his small frame. "We don't want trouble," he said, Voice steady but thin. We steady but thin. We steady but thin. You sir not in trouble, the man replied calmly. I'm just trying to understand what happened. The boy hesitated, torn between distrust and the faint hope of kindness. Layla tugged at his hoodie sleeve. He helped me, she said softly. He saw everything. A flicker of relief crossed the boy's face, though he kept his guard high. She didn't steal anything, he said. She doesn't do that. I know, the man answered. That's why I'm talking to you. The boy swallowed. His eyes were too old for his face, like someone who had watched too many doors close and too many promises break. We just needed to wait inside, he explained, voice quiet but urgent. Lila got scared being out here alone. The man studied him for a long moment, then asked gently, "Where are your parents?" The boy's expression shifted, subtle but sharp enough to reveal the truth. We don't have them around. It was vague, painfully vague, and deliberately vague. The man didn't push. He had learned long ago that some truths had to be approached slowly like wounded animals. "What's your name?" he asked instead. The boy hesitated, then answered, "Evan." "Evan," the man repeated, letting the name settle. Evan nodded stiffly, his fingers twitching once, as though ready to pull Lila and run if anything felt wrong. Marcus took a slow breath. "Evan, I think your sister went through something no child should go through today. She was humiliated. Mishandled, and not leaving until I make sure she's all right." Evan's eyes softened, just a shade. "People don't usually say that," he murmured. "A lot of people overlook things they shouldn't," Marcus replied, his gaze drifting momentarily toward the store's glass doors. Inside, the manager paced behind the counter, unaware that the real trouble was just beginning. Marcus crouched again beside Lila. "Can you tell me what you were waiting for in the store?" Lila looked at Evan, asking permission without words. He gave a small nod. "We were waiting for someone who said they might give us a job," she said quietly. "Just something small, cleaning, or helping with things. Evan said I could sit inside so I wouldn't be in the sun." Marcus felt something tighten in his chest. This wasn't mischief. This wasn't delinquency. This was survival. "And did he show up?" Marcus asked. Evan shook his head. "He texted saying he said they'd be here by noon, but he never came." Marcus checked his watch. "Almost 2. "Where do you live?" Marcus asked. Evan looked away, around. The kind of around that meant not really anywhere at all. A gust of warm wind blew down the street, lifting dust and supermarket receipts. Leela shivered. Despite the heat, Evan instinctively wrapped an arm around her. Marcus Sist's voice softened. "How long have you two been on your own?" Evan stiffened again. Panicked. Defensive. "We're fine," he insisted. "I take care of us. We don't need charity." "I didn't say you did," Marcus replied. "I didn't asking because someone should be taking care of both of you. And it looks like no one is." Silence. Layla pressed her face into Evan's side, whispering, "It was only $1. Why did they get so mad?" Marcus looked at her, and the moment stretched, long, fragile, heartbreaking. "Because sometimes adults forget what kindness looks like," he said. "And sometimes they judge what they don't understand." Evan exhaled shakily. "I should been here sooner." Marcus shook his head. This wasn't your fault. But Evan didn't believe that. Marcus could see it in the way the boy's shoulders hunched under invisible weight. A sudden thud sounded behind them. The store's doors opening. The manager stepped outside, brow furrowed, frustration dripping from every stride. "There you are," he snapped. "Sir, if you said you're going to stand out here blocking our entrance." Marcus turned, his posture straightening, his voice cold enough to freeze the air. "You owe this child an apology." The manager blinked. What? You dragged her, humiliated her, and accused her without checking a single fact. Marcus sissed, tone sharpened. She didn't steal your dollar. She was acting suspicious. No, Marcus cut in. You were. Customers gathering near the entrance began murmuring, some embarrassed for staying silent earlier, some curious, some guilty. The manager's face reddened. Sir, I don't sit and know who you think you are. But, from the man who watched what you did, Marcus stated, and if you like to avoid the consequences of mishandling a minor, I suggest you choose your next words carefully. The manager's mouth snapped shut. For a moment, the warm afternoon felt like it was holding its breath. Marcus didn't look angry. He looked resolute, like someone who had seen far worse injustices than this, and refused to let another slide by. But while the manager shrank back toward the doors, Marcus noticed something the others didn't. Evan had gone pale. He wasn't looking at the manager. He wasn't looking at Marcus. He was staring across the street, frozen. Marcus followed his gaze. A black SUV had parked silently at the curb opposite them, tinted windows. Engine still running. A figure sat inside, watching. Evan whispered, barely audible, "No, not again." Marcus frowned. "Evan, who is that?" Evan Sepp's fingers tightened around Lila Sepp's hand. "We have to go now." Lila Spitz's eyes widened in terror. The SUV door cracked open. A man stepped out. And the fear on both children Sepp's faces told Marcus everything. Whatever story he had walked into, this was only the beginning.